I'll get to the point. There's just one thing I wanna say. I'll get to the point. There's just one thing I wanna say. Get to the point. There's just one thing I wanna say.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. We are here again on another week. We're doing 360 Takeout another week. Since this week, we have some good topics tonight. We had some really good ones last week as well. We're back on with some more thought-provoking topics for this week to talk about with you all. So once again, we want to welcome you all. I want a different night tonight. We're going to probably explain a little more of a change we're going to be doing going forward a little later on in the show. But hopefully didn't throw anybody off. This week, as we usually are on Thursdays, maybe this hopefully will be a better day for everybody to join us. As always, we want to welcome you all to integrate to interact with us in the chat. So we can get your comments. We can kind of get your ideas what we're going to be talking about. As you can see on the right-hand side, the topics that we'll be discussing tonight. Again, some very thought-provoking topics that we want to get your opinions on, so feel free to leave comments in the chat. We will be checking on them periodically. As you see, we have here as one of the line items. So I got my brother here, Isaac. Tonight, we're light. Tonight, we have 4 of us on last week. Just 2 of us on tonight. But what's going on, bro? Are you muted? Can't hear you.
Always a pleasure to hang out with you a little bit and do the knowledge, and great to have some friends along with us as we kick off here. For those that don't know, 360 Collective is a social commentary group who confronts issues of race, racial justice, racial injustice, and in general broad issues of consciousness. And so you can see there, as Grant said, we are going to address a number of issues tonight, sort of in rapid style format. We'll spend between 5 and 7 minutes on each topic, and we'll pause along the way to take your comments or reactions and even invite you directly into the conversation as we go along. If this is your first time with 360 Collective, we would love for you to check out our Facebook page, check out some of our content on our YouTube page, which we just began. And also you can learn more about us on our website, 360collective.online. Lots of wonderful content there for you, other videos that we've produced previously up until now. So we hope that you join us. We hope that you'll like our page, our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube page, and then check out our website as well. We believe in inclusive democratic dialogue in which we listen and learn from those who are viewing. We want to hear your comments and insights so that we can learn from you. Hopefully the discussion that Grant and I will have in just a second is moving for you, and you find some inspiration or value in it in your own life and in the work that you are doing in your own community. So that's just a little bit about us. I think we're just about ready to go. Was there anything that I missed there, Grant?
No, but just one more thing. Those who are watching on YouTube, it's very important that you like and share. That's how we get the algorithm out there to get more people to view our live stream. But we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube, so we're trying to get more views on YouTube, so that'll help us out. That's it. Let's go.
All right, then. Let's hear our first question then.
Why is everyone arguing about critical race theory in public schools?
Oh man, where do we even begin with this one, Grant? This is a heavy topic here.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I think it's important that we agree on what critical race theory is, because there's a lot of misconception about what CRT is and its substance in the very first place. So critical race theory was something that originated in the 1970s by a group of college professors who realized that momentum from the civil rights movement was slowing down, and that a lot of the progress which was being made in the civil rights movement was being rolled back even. And so this group of professors, Derek Bell, Richard Salgado, and a few others, created this theory, created a technique with which to examine legal policy in particular to identify racist outcomes, outcomes that were producing inequity between racial groups. And then the second part of critical race theory that is so important for us to understand is that it argues that there is no such thing as race, that the idea of race that we have about one group of people being more physically gifted and one group of people being more intellectually gifted, that all of these ideas are made up and are not based in any science, that the only difference between one group of people and another are really skin color and then other minor differences, but these do not constitute different races of people. Critical race theory posits that there is one race, the human race. Therefore, any differences that we see in society, in criminal justice, or in employment, or education, or housing, is not the result of genetic differences or the abilities of one racial group or another, but must be the result of some inequity in rules, regulations, or policies. Further, critical race theory asserts that policies can be racist without people being racist, or without people necessarily believing in the superiority or inferiority of one group of people or another. That intent, feeling, relationship between one person and other races is not actually the most important thing to consider when examining the state of our society and when examining social, political, and otherwise policy in America. So that's a quick overview of what critical race theory is. It's become a hot button issue because Republican governors, Republican legislators have taken to this issue as a way to attack what they see as the woke mob, and to push back against what they see as leftist woke politics in the media and otherwise. So that's a quick definition of what critical race theory is and why we're arguing about it now. I want to pause there because I've said a lot. Grant, what's your reaction to this, or what do you think about that question?
So just to add to that, the theory also says that racism is part of everyday life. I mean, let's be honest about it, all right? So people, not white or non-white, who don't intend to be racist can nevertheless make choices that fuel racism. We got to understand that. So, but some critics claim that the theory advocates discriminating against white people in order to achieve equity, which I think is farthest from the truth. It's amazing when we talk about race, how automatically some white folks assume it's an attack on them. You know, if it's impossible to be racist. When I just said that we realize, because some people have, some people know what they're doing flat out there. They're flat out are racist, and some people have implicit biases that they may not be aware of. But this is definitely something that the main aim at those accusations and theorists who advocate for policies that explicitly take race into account. Fundamentally, disagreement springs from these conceptions of racism. So CRT puts an emphasis on outcomes, not merely on individuals or on beliefs, right, but it calls on these outcomes to be examined and rectified. It's definitely something that, it's a larger topic that we can spend hours talking about, but I do think that it's something that we can't shy away from, and it's not some woke movement. It's a real thing. And I think that even though it's an older concept, why it's coming to light, just like everything else coming to light when it comes to DEI, and that's a hot button topic right now. And I think all this is coming up now because we're seeing a lot of pushback from it, especially in the education arena, and it's taken a huge approach to deal with it on a national level like we never seen before.
Yeah, I guess one thing I would add, Grant, is that, and I see we have a couple comments. We're going to get to them in just a second. But one thing I would add too is, and here's one thing that I agree with some of the criticism on the right about, is the argument against CRT is that it positions that all white people are racist, which is completely false. It doesn't say that at all. There's no part of the theory that says that. What it does assert, though, is that social policy in this country currently and historically has been designed to benefit white people. It doesn't make white people racist, but the practice, the act of consistently referring to people as racist isn't actually productive to any conversation in which eliminating racism is the goal. It is much more productive to attack racism by confronting the policies, the actions that result in inequity in our country. Calling a person a racist, calling a group of people a racist isn't productive at all. Now, in defense of critical race theory, that's not what the theory does in the first place. But I think that's what a lot of people on the right think that it does, because when my people and I hear about issues like this, we become very defensive. And so, like you said, we can talk more about that in the past, or sorry, in the future in other conversations. But for now, we have other topics to address. So let's do that, and then we have some comments that we can jump into. So the next question.
What is the war in Ukraine really about?
Oh man, Grant, this is another one, man, that I feel very strongly about. So when we think about Ukraine, it's easy to get caught up in the things that are happening right now, and by that, what I mean is Vladimir Putin and the things that he's done recently in Ukraine. But the thing that we have to keep in mind and that we must be aware of is the long history of this region that involves not only the United States, or not only Russia, but also the United States. And what I mean by that is that if you go back to the fall of the Soviet Union in 1989, 1990, there were promises made at that time that the United States would not infringe upon some of the countries, some of the regions which were separating themselves and wanted to be independent from the former Soviet Union. So we're talking about places in Eastern Europe, Yugoslavia, Estonia, and other places, and also the region that we now call Ukraine. But while the United States made this promise publicly to the former Soviet Union, to Gorbachev and to Boris Yeltsin, his successor, the United States was arranging through the National Endowment for Democracy to begin promoting regime change and to begin promoting leadership change in these countries that were separating themselves from the Soviet Union. So through the National Endowment for Democracy and through other grants and credits, which the United States were offering, Eastern European republics took money from the United States in exchange for allowing the United States to supervise and orchestrate democratic elections in these newly forming republics. And so while these countries weren't under the control, under the guise of the United States per se, they were being orchestrated and organized and manipulated by the United States. Since that time, NATO has expanded eastward, includes countries like Turkey and others that have grown closer towards the Russian boundary. And so when we think about this region of the world and the politics of the United States at this time, and even think about Bill Clinton and what he did in the region. the United States has had an interest in maintaining control of this region as a way to keep Russia sort of on a leash, if you will. And so what we're seeing today is Russia pushing back against that control. Russia seeking to protect its borders, its boundaries from U.S. aggression, from Western aggression, from NATO growth. There have been conversations involving Ukraine and NATO that make Russia feel incredibly insecure. Now, this isn't at all to say that Vladimir Putin is justified in what he's done. He isn't at all. Vladimir Putin is unstable. He's a warmonger. He deserves to be removed from power, but it should happen in the right way. It shouldn't happen through machinations hatched by the United States. And so all of that said, it's important for us to see past the rhetoric that we hear now on TV now and read in the newspapers. Now I'm reading that regime change is in the making, that there's the director of intelligence there in Russia is being set up to take power in place of Putin, who will be overthrown by wealthy oligarchs. There's also rumors and discussion of chemical weapons being used in Ukraine, Russia using chemical weapons. These are all things that are designed to justify and set the United States up for a greater role and a greater presence in the region. I think it's important for us to keep those things in mind and remain conscious as we listen to the news and check in on what's happening in Ukraine every day. I think it's important for us to keep. What are your thoughts, G? Any reaction to that?
Those are all good points that you made. I think that there's another element to this I want to bring into play that I don't think a lot of people are talking about, and one that I can go into some of it, but so Russia basically have made some discoveries about Ukraine. It's definitely political. It's definitely political. What you said is definitely on point. One example that someone made about I thought resonated very well. If Canada decided to link up with Russia and China, become an enemy of ours, what would we do as a country to have someone right next door on our border that's getting ready to link up with two known enemies of ours? So that's kind of where Vladimir Putin's whole thought process was at the beginning of all this. Like, wait a minute, you all just not going to arm up and get nukes and blah, blah, blah right next to me, and then you joining forces with some of our enemies. That's not going to sit well for me when you're right next door. I got to make sure it doesn't happen. So he kind of jumped in, and what he did was, I'm not condoning what he did, but that was sort of his thought process. I don't think the U.S. would have done anything differently. We wouldn't have came in and started bombing and killing civilians and children, but I think we would have been a little bit concerned about Canada's alliances. Now, the other piece I want to throw in, and people are not really discussing, is that Ukraine is a very resourceful country. And because it was part of the USSR at one time, they feel a little slighted that these resources, these precious resources, are there and they have no access to it. Ukraine produces 18% of the world's sunflower seeds. And if you know anything about sunflower oil, take a look at the back of any of your processed foods, and you're going to see sunflower oil being used in those processed foods. It's a huge export. Safflower and cottonseed oil exports. They have 13% of corn production, 12% of global barley exports, and 8% of wheat exports. That's huge. And they have a huge magnesium and iron ore and coal and natural gas, graphite, sulfur. There's a lot of it's rich. It's a mineral-rich country that Russia wants to get their hands on as well. We're not discussing that. It's not just politics. They want that. They want control of the land so they can take advantage of those resources as well. As things start to dry up on Russia's soil, they're thinking, wait a minute, I got this country right next to me. We all used to be one anyways. Now they're talking about linking up with some of our enemies and they're rich in these exports. I want it. So Putin is basically coming in a strong arm in the country. But that is a part of the play as well, that people are not discussing. So again, I'm not advocating for, but this is. I mean, war is a strategic game. It's not something you just go in without any type of strategy. I mean, yeah, he's off his rocker, but don't think he's crazy all the way around. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows what he's after, and he's doing it by any means necessary.
All right, let's get to the chat, G. I think there are some comments there. I'll read a couple. And you can react if you want. So Kira says, I apologize if it's Kyra. My apologies. But Kira says, people are arguing about CRT is because people fear what they don't understand, especially when it leads to liberation. And then on that same topic, Rome says, a hit dog hollers. Yep. And then Kira adds, people are in denial about the reality of oppression and our collusion with evil, and people don't feel powerful enough to engage in liberatory action. CRT raises consciousness about things that we don't want to confront. Right on. So those are the comments related to the critical race theory piece that we mentioned before. What, any reactions to that, G?
No, I think those comments are spot on. I don't really have anything to add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that Kira is highlighting there the fact that critical race theory tries to unpack for us the ways that racism works so that it doesn't become this elusive thing that is hard for us to put our finger on or nail down, and also seeks to expand our understanding of what racism is. Racism, of course, includes all the traditional things that we probably equate when we first think of racism: name calling, bigotry, hatred of people based on their skin color, things of that nature, right? All of those things fit into what racism is, but racism goes beyond that as well, and can be seen in policies that even in their intention may not have been designed to oppress or to create inequity, but nonetheless have, because of some weakness, some lack of consideration in that policy. So I appreciate that Kira is describing it in that way for sure. Let's see. In terms of the Ukraine discussion, so Rome says geopolitical positioning, and then replying to Kira, he says, I agree with that. Most of us Americans don't want to do the work. Okay, so that's in respect to the CRT piece. Rome says, thank you for bringing up the pledge to not court Eastern European former Warsaw Pact members. Right on, Rome. That's a huge part of the relationship and how it's gone bad between the United States and Russia, and the West and Russia over the last 30 years. I appreciate the compliment there on the breakdown of the war in Ukraine. We did it in just a few minutes, Rome. It's so much deeper than we have time to discuss now, but definitely appreciate your love on that one. And then Kira says the war in Ukraine is about empires going against empire, East versus West, bourgeois Western identity versus Eastern proletariat identity. I mean, I'm not reducing this into Twitter format. LOL, it's complicated. Right on, Kira, right on. Ukraine is still a colonized subject identified with the Western bourgeois, striving to become white, aka NATO. And it looks like Rome and Kira are continuing the conversation. Colonized by Russia, like Crimea. And then Kira says it used to be part of the Soviet Union, so it's still striving to construct a reactionary identity. And then Rome said, word, okay, I just wanted to make sure I understand the context. Yeah, and so to that point, Kira, one of the reasons why Ukraine is the way it is because of organizations like the National Endowment for Democracy and other Western interventions immediately following the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And then as recently as 2014, under President Obama, the United States helped to bring about a regime change there in Ukraine, resulting in a strongly right-wing, borderline fascist leadership group there. And that tradition has continued through today, where there are members of the Azov battalion in in the central office of executive office there in Ukraine. There are members of parliament who associate with the far right. The Azov battalion itself is actually part of the Ukraine military establishment. The Azov battalion, for those that don't know, are a strong right-leaning Nazi organization who associates themselves openly and deliberately with Nazi ideology. And they are now on the front lines fighting for the defense of Ukraine, and also have strong influence within parliament and the executive office there in the Ukraine. So yeah, I guess so. That's just a quick reaction there to what we have in the comments. Anything that you want to add there, Grant?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. Oh man. All right, here we go then.
What's happening with Kanye West?
Oh man.
What's not happening with Kanye West? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So first off, I live in Chicago. I'm from Chicago. I have love for Kanye West, and I know the city of Chicago does as well. I mean, there's so much for us to unpack here about his behavior, some of the things the online social media back and forth with other moguls, the threats and what have you to Pete Davidson, and endangering his wife Kim Kardashian, and some of those interactions. But I mean, let's call it what it is, man. I mean, this has been happening with Kanye even before the 2022, and there's been something not quite right with him for a long time. And I watched the Genius documentary on Netflix, and it was eye-opening to see how he's changed from 1998 through to 2020. Man, I mean, a lot has happened to him. And I mean, frankly, I think that there's an issue of mental wellness here as well. I'm not sure that he's getting all the help that he needs to. And let me also say, everybody needs help. Everybody needs help. Everybody could use therapy. Everybody needs a shoulder, a person to talk to unpack feelings with, to process with. Everybody needs that. And I'm not sure who in Kanye's camp that person is, because I know for a long time it was his mother. That's been clear if you listen to him rap at all. But it's even more clear, more starkly obvious in the documentary, the Genius documentary, how much and how deeply important his mother was to him. And as I understand it, he's responsible for the plastic surgery operation that led to his mother's death. Not responsible as in it was something that he suggested or offered or proposed to his mother, and it's something that she did as a result of him proposing or suggesting the idea. I don't want to suggest that he's to blame for his mother's death at all, but if I were him, I might blame myself. I would have very strong feelings of angst and anguish and deep heartache if I were in his position and something like that happened to my mother. So I'm trying to empathize as much as I can. So that's my Kanye take at this point. G, what are your thoughts, man?
He's going through a lot. I think the documentary was supposed to sort of clear things up and where he is in terms of his mental state. I think they really honed in on his relationship with his mom, so you can understand who he was before his mother passed and who he became afterwards. If you notice, really the documentary was, some people say it was really about Donda more so, because Donda's, his mother's shape, I mean, I was absolutely astounded. And I think we can all learn. I mean, any woman can learn, or not going to say woman, but just any parent can take from what Donna's approach was to support her son. And that's exactly what she did. I mean, she was his biggest cheerleader. He lost a huge part of support when she passed. But if you also look at if you also got a chance to see the documentary, you saw that Donda began to change herself, though, from this humble professor to now more in the limelight where she did want to get plastic surgery. And so if Kanye financially helped with that cause, I mean, he might seem that it does fall in his lap. Like maybe he might feel like his mom was this humble professor. He changed her into something that she wasn't. You notice she came from she was dressed sort of humbly, hair humbly, and all of a sudden, towards the late 90s, early, around 2000 or so, we saw a shift. And so as the money started rolling in, because of course he started getting paid, and so he started saying, "Hey, mom, here's these clothes." He always talks about, "I bought my mom a purse. I see Louis Vuitton mom, or Louis Vuitton mom." So he started giving his mom the things that she never had before. But I think that when she passed, it really mentally disturbed him. I think those things were already there in the first place. If you look at just some of the things he would say and do, it was sort of questionable. I never could figure out, like, wait a minute, did he have the accident, or was it before the accident? Because he was saying things and doing things that were very narcissistic, and that's just pretty much, I think, not necessarily his ego was always there, and it was fueled by his mom, but I think it flew off the hinges when his mom was no longer there to monitor that and to put him in check and to advise him. So I think the people around him didn't know what to do. They just figured, oh, that's just Kanye, that's just who he is. And now, situation with him and Kim, and then now whether you have the kids involved, it's a huge mess. And I really do feel for the children who are involved in this. But I understand them, for him to be a little concerned about who his children are around, which is the other debate at hand. Should she have this younger guy who Pete Davidson, who I don't know much about him, to be honest with you, but he doesn't seem like the type of character who I'd want around my children, to be honest with you. So I completely understand him moving across the street, even though it looks sort of stalkerish, but he wants to know exactly what's going on. Okay, we're not going to work out. Hey, I'm moving across the street. I don't know what's going on with my kids. I don't think it's about Kim per se. I think it's getting over it. But I think he's having a hard time because I think he really does still love her. And I think he really just wants his family back. I feel for Kanye. I think he is a genius. Let's face it, most genius, they was deemed to be crazy to a certain extent. I mean, they were. A lot of people who are very intelligent just don't appear to be stable. But I think he knows exactly what he's doing. I know he's off his meds at times, but I think he is a creative genius, has been and always will be.
Yeah. All right. We'll come back to that because there are some comments on that. But let's jump into the next question.
The Crown Act prohibiting discrimination based on hairstyle or texture has passed through the House. Will it become law?
Yeah, so this is this has been a long time coming, to be honest with you. Hair texture has always been a very sensitive subject, especially when it comes to Black women, but more so even now Black men, because now they're starting to wear their hair in different textures as well. So there's locks, braids. It's becoming more of a fashion statement. But unfortunately, we don't have the same rights as some whites or other races who can wear their hair in different. They have deemed to be unprofessional in many opinions. But it was okay. But for some reason or another, to wear your hair in certain hairstyles, is not a professional. Or they have a situation where the young man who was wrestling, who was actually told to cut his locks before he can resume his wrestling match or participate in a wrestling match. So right now what's happening is on Friday, the House of Representatives passed the Crown Act, which bans the discrimination on the basis of hair texture and hairstyles. In a 235 to 189 vote, it will now move to the Senate, which it faces an uncertain fate. The Crown Act, which stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair, was created by 4 Black women who definitely have had the problems in the workplace and being accepted for their different hairstyles. You know, Black women change their hair all the time. You know, I had 2 sisters. I mean, you can never know what's going on. One week is this, one week is that. It's just the nature of what you're able to do with Black women's hair and also Black men as well. We have the opportunity to change our hair to many different textures and styles. But unfortunately, this has been a huge debate over the years. What's professional, what's not, what you should wear to the workplace, or what you should not wear to the workplace. Unfortunately, many of us have tamed our hairstyles and what we think will be accepted. But this particular act is now going to protect anyone that's going to discriminate you on the basis of your hairstyles, your hair texture, your hairstyles. It's passed the House. Now we have to get through the Senate. I think it definitely should. President Biden has supported this particular act. However, we don't know where it's going to land up in the Senate, but it's a problem. I don't think especially for young girls who have to grow up, in some cases, hating themselves because their hair is not straight, or because they can't wake up in the morning and just fly out the door with straight flowing hair. It has to be sometimes pressed, and you know, we had the whole debate over, you know, should you press your hair? Should you wear it? You had the 70s and 60s where it was okay to wear an afro, but that was that particular time period. Now then it switched over to wearing hair weaves, and is that's okay or not. And now we're here present day talking about, in many cases, women wearing locks or wearing braids or other natural styles that now have become to be in style now. So we had to take it to the point where now they had to be taken by the law. So we're hoping that this will be in place so no one can say, hey, you can't be hired, or if you feel as if you were discriminated against because of your hair, now there's something in place that can protect people. So I hope it does pass through the Senate. We're still in the very early stages of this, but it has been voted on, and they did pass the House, which is great news. And I'm glad it's getting it's actually going somewhere and gaining ground to become a law in this country. What are your thoughts on that, Ike?
You notice how many of my people don't want to examine society through the lens of race because of how it makes us feel. In the same way that we want to ban what kind of hairstyle you can have in your place of work or in the place where you go to learn. This all comes back to my people. It all comes back to me. Too often in this country, we think of racism as a problem that Black people must solve. It isn't. Racism is a white person's problem. We have to elevate ourselves to the level of humankind. We must learn how to be proper human beings, because there's no way that a law needs to get made in order that people can wear their hair any way they want to. But in America, where racism is alive and well, systematically and otherwise, a law like this is absolutely essential to protect the livelihood, the personhood, the efficacy of people of color and Black men and women in particular. It is a shame that a law like this needs to be written, but the truth is that it does. We have to begin thinking about racism as a white problem, because that is what it is. So that's all I'll say on that, Grant. I think we have some comments there, good brother.
Yeah, I see. All right, where should we start at? Let's go down a little bit here.
Kanye, I think, is where we left off, man. So we can start. If you find the comments with Kanye, that'll be a good place.
Okay. Kiera says Kanye made money his religion and his ego is God, and violence is now his art. Wow, that's pretty deep. I'm kind of curious though, in terms of violence. What do you mean by that? What violent acts has he committed?
And I think I understand why Kira says that. What's interesting is that in the documentary, he states at one point, this is later in his life, this is something that probably was said in the past few years. He said, I used to make culture my God, but now God is my God. And so it's interesting that, because I think Kanye, like everybody, is on a journey, and I appreciate him for that. He's not the same person that he was 5 years ago, and 5 years ago he was a different person than he was previous to that. So what I admire about Kanye is that he's on a journey, and we're along for that journey. We've seen him in the different stages of his life. I think at one point in his life that was absolutely true, and in fact that could be why he got all mixed up. I think that at this point in his life he's realized that, but I don't think that he's gotten the help that he needs to complement that realization, because recognizing where you are and then doing something constructive about it are two different things. I mean, a person with a drinking problem can recognize that they have a drinking problem or a substance problem. Recognizing it isn't by itself enough to move past or to manage the problem. And so I think that's where Kanye is at this point, is that he's recognized some of his own weaknesses or flaws, or maybe the error in some of his previous behaviors, but he hasn't yet found the way to get past them. That's just my thought on that comment.
Yeah, and I think that this next comment about Rome was pretty good. It kind of ties in, is that Kanye basically needs to be placed on timeout, just sit and reflect. He needs help, but people are too easily swayed by money. Michael Jackson had a doctor giving him anesthesia at home to sleep. He has too much access to wealth to be made to get help.
Yes.
I have not seen the documentary. Okay, so he hasn't seen it.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Rome. That's a great call out. Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kyra comes back and says the line between domestic violence and domestic terrorism is thin. Let's hope Ye doesn't get militant if Trump 2024 happens.
Yeah, great call.
All right, the Crown Act is a must. The Crown Act should be law, and it's high key racism that it can be discriminated against up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's no spiritual dimensions to hair. Black is beautiful.
Spiritual dimensions. Yeah, there are spiritual dimensions, she said. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. White people need to do the work. Replying. Okay. Yeah, I mean, great comments, guys. I mean, I definitely appreciate y'all dropping those comments in. Great observations and comments.
Yeah, Danica just dropped another one in there too. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Danica. If not, definitely correct me. My deepest apologies. But we honor your comments. Thank you all for being so active in the chat. We're taking a lot from them, and you make us think about things differently as a result. But yeah, recognizing the problem can be challenging all by itself, but recognizing the problem alone and doing nothing after that is insufficient. So right on there, Danica. All right, so I guess we're ready for the next question.
All right.
There were 9 mass shootings this weekend in which 8 people were killed and 60 were injured. Why does this keep happening?
Here we are again with mass shootings that are starting to ramp up. They sort of seem to be dying down, but do you have another and tragic weekend that happened this past weekend? The country this weekend. We notice often when the weather begins to break, the uptick in violence usually does spike. But this was a little more unusual, considering the fact that it happened in so many places across the country. Many are speculating why this is happening, not only because of the weather, but because of what's going on right now. People are in pretty tight situations. They're on edge. There are no more stimulus checks floating around. People are are being hurt by the gas prices, the inflation. I think people are simply walking around on edge. Could be the case. I'm not really sure. But let me just kind of run through what happened this past weekend. In Norfolk, Virginia, we had 2 killed, 3 wounded outside a restaurant. One happened to be a former CNN news assistant, Sierra Jenkins, that was killed in the violence. Unfortunately, we went on then Madison Heights, Virginia. 1 was killed, 4 wounded. There was an incident where I believe this was a domestic dispute of some sort. Mother of twin boys wounded, 4 others. There also we go down in Arkansas, Dumas, Arkansas. 1 killed, 27 injured at a car show. People trying to go out and have some fun. If somebody just says something wrong, look at you the wrong way, and people are walking around strapped and ready to kill. In Houston, 1 teenager killed, 3 wounded outside a birthday party. I mean, come on, folks. I mean, we're going to a birthday party and somehow a fight breaks out and somebody's dead. Fayetteville, North Carolina, 3 killed, 3 wounded at a hotel. Who knows what was going on there? Doesn't seem to give too much evidence as to what happened at the hotel room. It could have been a hotel party. It could have been something else going on. Drug deal going bad. I don't know, but there was 3 killed and 3 wounded at that particular incident. Dallas, at least 10 wounded. This was one of them critically injured in the shooting on Saturday night in Dallas. They responded to a shooting in the 5200 block of Jean Boulevard around midnight. They're determining what went on at the scene, but there was probably, it sounded like it could have been some sort of house party there. I don't know. Let me give more details. In Austin, Texas, your comrades 360 were just there a couple weeks ago, walking around in the very vicinity where this shooting took place near I'm not laughing. It's so surreal because thank God it could have been us, right? All right. We were at this particular conference a few weeks ago, SXSW Festival, and we were in this particular area where you had 4 that were shot near this festival. Then Milwaukee, 4 shot at a party. 24-year-old man sustained life-threatening injuries, and a 28-year-old woman, and a 23-year-old man, fatal injuries. So this is what happened this particular one weekend. All this sparked off, and we're not even we're just a couple days in the spring. What in the hell is going to happen this summer? I'm scared. I'm scared for folks' lives that are going into innocent birthday parties, as you saw, car shows, standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. What's fueling this? Why all the animosity? Why are you so quick to resolve an issue with a gun? This is also going to bring up the conversation about gun control. And folks are going to go crazy about, you better not come for my guns. You're not going to come for my guns. But when you have people who are using guns inappropriately and are not carrying them legally, this is why the debate is on the table. This is why you have politicians who are actually ready for Americans to turn in their guns and ban all guns for all Americans. This is why, because we have a percentage of people who don't know how to lawfully carry a weapon, who don't know how to not use weapon in a situation where it could be rectified by possibly some type of verbal intervention, which should be the case anyway. Talk it out and just be done with it. Or what happens to using these? Okay, so I think we're going to have a situation where this is going to escalate this summer, and we're going to have politicians talking once again about banning particular weapons in particular. But you have some politicians who want to get rid of weapons altogether to disarm the American people. What are your thoughts?
You raise a great point there about gun control in this country. Gee, you know how many guns there are in this country right now? You have a ballpark guess?
2 million.
393 million.
To what? Oh, wow. Okay.
In this
Way
country,
off.
there are 393 million guns.
Wow.
You know how many there are in the rest of the world? In the rest of the world, and we're talking about civilian guns, guns owned by civilians. Let me be clear. There are
Probably
393 million guns owned by civilians in this country. In the rest of the world, civilians own about the same amount. In the rest of the world, G.
okay. Wow.
So I think you touched on some great root causes. I think that the people coming out of the pandemic, we don't know how to relate to each other as well. It's why in schools there's more conflict than there ever has been before. It's why on airplanes there's conflict. Places where we don't see conflict typically, there's more now than there ever has been. There are more shootings in this country than there ever have been, or recently at least. There's definitely a spike. But all of that aside, like you said, we could just be having fistfights if we didn't have millions and millions of guns on the street. I understand where the Second Amendment comes from. I understand why it was created in the very first place. But the intention and the spirit of the Second Amendment and the way that it is applied today and the relationship that gun manufacturers have with Congress is absolutely treasonous, and something needs to happen. At 360 in our platform, we talk about ending all wars and dismantling all weapons of war and militarism, which includes guns. And so, in our opinion at 360, the first group who should disarm should be the United States military, followed by law enforcement. And that should create a movement across the planet of demilitarizing, de-weaponizing, especially though in this country. We have almost as many weapons in the hands of private citizens as the rest of the world combined. I'll leave you with that. We can go on and on about this topic. I know we're over time. Let's jump into the next topic. You want to add anything on that, G? Any reaction to that before you hit on our last topic?
I think you froze up that last point. You make that last point one more time. You froze up, at least on my end. I don't know if everybody else saw that too.
I was just repeating that we have as many weapons in the hands of private citizens in this country as the whole world combined, as all of the private citizens of the world combined.
That's mind blowing. Let me just make one more. That's mind blowing. And to think that the weaponry in the first place was only supposed to be in the case of, now we understand that there's some cases of self-defense, home invasions are robberies and things are starting up to. They always been a part of this country. It's been the fabric of this country of self-defense. You want to have the right to bear arms. I understand that part, but when it's so easy to get a weapon now, when all you have to do is go in and show your ID in some states, especially in the state of Texas, you simply have to go in and show an ID. I'm not sure if you show an ID. I mean, somebody in the comments correct me on this, or if you know why. I think you simply can go into a gun shop and purchase a weapon without any questions asked. I'm not sure background checks are even a part of their state law. There needs to definitely be more some laws in place to crack down and so we take the illegal guns off the streets, but also to make it harder to obtain a weapon. In my opinion, I do understand of self-defense, but at the same time, the most people who are carrying these weapons are not thinking about going hunting. They're not thinking about carrying the weapon legally. They're holding a weapon because they're scared for their lives due to other activities they're involved in when it comes to the streets. That's what it seems like. When I have to carry a gun to a birthday party, scared that someone in that particular party might have something against me, or some type of rift between the family, that I have to come with a gun and prepare to defend myself. So yeah, there's a number of reasons why people are hot-headed and on edge right now. But I do think if there were less guns on the streets and into private citizens' hands, we wouldn't be reading these headlines like we are every single week. So we'll have to come back around to this topic because I think we need to have a little more discussion on this, as these kind of things will rise this summer. We're going to see more of this. All right, let's go on to our last
Okay, last topic.
topic.
Deshawn Watson, the star quarterback, facing 22 civil suits alleging sexual assault and sexual misconduct, just received the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history. Is this fair?
Wow, Deshaun Watson. I thought his career was done. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was really shocked that he was given a shot. But let's look at what actually happened. So at this time last week, Deshaun was still a member of the Houston Texans by contract. So a grand jury in Texas had just declined to bring charges against Watson on 9 separate criminal complaints, which were linked to 22 civil complaints of sexual misconduct that range from harassment and sexual assault. Those civil suits remain very much alive, but the grand jury dismissed the charges, and NFL teams had we have acknowledged the legal system to play out card to their pockets, and they attempted to cash in immediately. I mean, Watson's a very talented quarterback. Make no mistake about it. It's not like he's just some washed up quarterback. I mean, he's a very highly desired, especially in the case with Cleveland, when they've been scrambling around trying to find a franchise quarterback forever. They can use somebody like Watson. Now, should he be allowed to come right back into the NFL after these allegations? Again, allegations. There was no evidence to prove that he was guilty. So why shouldn't he be able to play? There are many players who have had sexual harassment or sexual assault cases against them. When you talk about quarterbacks, one of the great ones who just retired this year, Ben Roethlisberger, had one against himself, and people just swept it under the rug, and he still rolled off into the sunset. One of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. No one ever hung it over his head at all. Other players who have been in the same situation as Watson, I think because there were 22 complaints, seem to be a pretty high number. I personally think that some of the stuff was just another attack on a black man's character. I have Deshaun, I have followed him for a very long time, and I have had nothing but the utmost respect for him, how he carries himself. He's a family person. I've watched him outside of off the field and some of the things he's involved in, and I was utterly shocked, to be honest with you, when I found out that he was being accused by these various women. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible that he didn't do this, but there was not evidence. There was not enough evidence to bring him from the grand jury to prosecute him. So life goes on. He's going to come back on the field. He's a highly sought out player because he's very talented, and he can bring a lot to the Browns organization. They see him as being a good player and a good fit for the team. So of course he's going to get a big contract. No one's bringing a big attention to the fact that Green Bay's quarterback, what's his name, who lied to the people about his COVID status, and then went on to just barely show up to practice. The man did whatever he wanted to do, and now he's the highest paid quarterback in the league. No one's talking about that, but everyone wants to talk about the fact these allegations that were actually found to be false in court. I think he has a clean slate. I think he did what he had to do to clear his name. I think he's innocent personally. I think those charges were brought against him because there were some problems in Houston. Because he did not want to he no longer wanted to stay in his contract. There were some problems with management there. And I think that some of these allegations were brought up purposely to tarnish his name. And hopefully, I think the goal was to end his career. But it didn't work. He's coming back next year. I'm looking forward to it.
It is true that Deshaun Watson had sought a trade and wanted to leave Houston before these allegations became public, and he cited just differences with management and some of the sort of heavy-handed policies and the approach of the general manager and the front office. So that's definitely true. Now, I don't have an opinion about whether he's innocent or guilty, because I mean the truth is that just about every man who's committed sexual assault is a good guy in somebody else's eyes. It's entirely possible that Deshawn Watson could be at hospitals carrying babies, signing casts, wishing get well to kids in the cancer unit, all of the things that you'd expect a stand-up model citizen professional athlete to do, and then makes women feel uncomfortable at the massage parlor later that evening or the following day. It's entirely possible because men in this country have been groomed to believe that we do what we want and that there are certain overtures that should just be accepted and tolerated by women. And so I don't know that he's done these things. It's possible that they could all could be part of a conspiracy to try to tarnish his name, weaken his standing, or end his career, like you said. I'm not putting that past the NFL at all, especially when it comes to a black man the stature of Deshawn Watson. All that is entirely possible. The fact that the grand jury didn't bring charges doesn't mean that there isn't something there that he did wrong. It just means that it didn't rise to the level of breaking a law for which he could be incarcerated. There's a difference in a civil suit, so we'll see what happens next. All of that said, I don't believe that he should be stripped of his ability to perform and play in the NFL. I believe that what happens off the field should be made right. Whatever the court decides is what he should honor, and he should be allowed to proceed with his career because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody deserves to pay for those mistakes. The system of justice in this country has never worked, and it's not going to work for Deshawn Watson. It's not going to work for the alleged victims. And I'll give you an example. His contract is structured now such that once the NFL reaches its decision, once it has completed its investigation, if it decides that Deshawn Watson should miss games this upcoming season as a result of his behavior, his salary this year is only $1 million. So that means that Deshawn Watson won't miss much of his paycheck. To me, in a true justice system, if Deshawn Watson has been found to do something wrong, he should lose money for that. There should be a system of justice that properly resolves the wrong that has happened. I don't believe that means that he should be banned. I don't believe that it means that his career should be ended. He should be allowed to pursue his career based on his abilities. But justice is elusive in this system. Transformative justice is what we need. I don't believe that any professional athlete should make what he makes. Frankly, I believe that all sports teams should be owned by the public, and that salaries for players of Deshaun Watson's stature and others should be regulated by a public trust. That's my opinion about it. I don't blame Deshaun Watson for any of that. I think we as a society have an obsession with sports that is unhealthy. And so there's a larger issue here outside of Deshaun Watson. I don't know. You had any last words on this one, G?
No. I think those are good comments. I see some good comments in it.
I'll jump into the comments.
Yeah, let's jump into the comments. You want to do it, or you want me to help?
Go ahead.
I think we start off with yes, gun control. Why do these people have guns? Not why do they have a gun, but what are you planning to do with that gun? When did taking a life become a pastime? Great point. What are you planning to do with the gun? Right. And again, like I stated earlier, I think people are using it widely for self-defense, protection. That's the only way they can protect themselves. They have a gun on them in these days, because they figure if I don't bring a gun, what's the saying? You bring a gun to a knife fight, or bring a knife to a gunfight. So people think, well, somebody's bound to have one, so I might as well have one too. Unfortunately, in this country. But yeah, taking a life, unfortunately, doesn't mean much these days. And I can't believe the amount of people who are willing to spend their life in prison, in some cases for the rest of their lives, for something that could have been resolved by talking it out or with your fist or in other ways to de-escalate to the situation. Kyra says, culinary consciousness, the conquerors use guns to conquer. They sure did. Danica, since when does not relating equal I will shoot you?
Right. Yeah. Since when does not getting along with someone result in getting shot? Yeah, right on.
Right. Devils be devils playing God. Kyra said, Rome says, I'm in Tennessee. They just passed a law where everyone over 21 can open or, conceal carry. It's on some frontier Wild West type mentality. Anyone over 21 can open, carry, or conceal without any type of vetting or no. Rome, we gotta look that one up. That's crazy. Okay, it says convicted felons are excluded. Private person.
And there are only 14 states right now that require background checks of any kind. Only 14 out of the 50 states.
And see, that's the problem right there. I mean, how you gonna get control of who has what, other than the fact of keeping count of gun sales? But anybody can. If you're not doing a background check, anybody can walk in and grab a gun and do anything they want with it. So
and most of the guns too, Grant. Most of the guns that I mentioned before, those almost 400 million, most of them are not registered either, because they were purchased in states where it's not required to do that.
And so they just carry them over state lines.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah, we got an issue. One more comment. Danica says contract doesn't matter in sexual abuse. Not saying he is guilty, but fuck off if you can play and potentially assault people when Kaepernick can't kneel and come back.
Right.
And Ben is worse. White privilege got him out of those accusations. Just my belief. Of course, that was the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben, he couldn't possibly be guilty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Kaepernick issue, I agree completely. And so when we talk about true justice, Kaepernick deserves to be in the league, period. He can occupy, he can get somebody's quarterback spot in the league. He can be, if nothing else, he can be a third string quarterback. He was a Super Bowl quarterback. And so clearly he's out of the league for political reasons. That is so that would be true justice for Kaepernick to be able to get back into the league. He's lost so many years at this point. I don't know that he can ever realize true justice. So let me restate that. But it would be just of the NFL to ensure that he gets signed somewhere, because he's deserving. He absolutely does. I agree with what Danica says there. And then Kira says domination, territoriality, and possessiveness, aka patriarchy. I think that's in reference to the Watson piece. Yeah, and I agree with you, Kira. I mean, I was just having a conversation with someone the other day about the concept of masculinity versus toxic masculinity, and the truth is that masculinity itself is toxic. The idea of masculinity itself, that's a conversation for another day. I know Grant and I and our other brother Amari have some great thoughts on that we can dig into another time. But yeah, I think Deshawn Watson, if what's being said about him is true, I think that his behavior fits into exactly how you described it there in your comment. So
yeah,
I'm
impressed with these comments. I'm impressed with the comments. I really, really enjoy reading them.
Hey, listen, Danica, Rome, Kira, we need you to like our page. We need you to come back when we have bigger conversations. We had one with Alex Vitale. We had one with the Black Panther Party previously. When we have big conversations with specific themes, we usually have a big audience for those. We want you to stick with us. Come back, because your comments, you're doing great knowledge to us. We're learning a lot from your comments, and we hope that you come back and join in the conversation with us whenever you feel comfortable. It's been great reading all of your comments tonight. We're glad that y'all tuned in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we definitely want to link up with like-minded folks. We actually might have you on. We usually throw a link in the chat, but we don't to come on live. But we just done when we're doing these type of rapid fire type situations. We don't have time, but we'll definitely have time in future discussions. So definitely follow us and spread the word about us.
Yeah.
My first time here. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're kind of in at the end of the night here. Great conversation, as it was already said. Yeah, I follow. I was in the reparations convo. Y'all are for the people. Appreciate that, Ron. Wait a minute. Your name? Yeah, I think I've seen you on before, Ron.
Oh, word. Okay, great.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate those who stuck with us all night, well, this evening, tonight. We just enjoy doing this. This is our. This is not a obligation. This is not something we have to do. We just something we want to do. We are doing this for you all. You know, we're doing this for liberation of our people. We definitely want to make sure that we get more of these in our discussions, and we have other things lined up. We have some other programs we have lined up that we want to get into there on a particular topic. But I enjoy doing these because I think we kind of cover so much ground and we can get so much perspectives from our listeners that we don't normally get to do when we're covering just one topic. So I think it was a great night tonight.
Right on, G. We'll be back. We'll be back next Wednesday. We're going to be on every Wednesday. So definitely tune back in. We'll have a new range of topics, current events to dig into. So we hope that you jump in. So just a reminder, every Wednesday here on our page, Facebook page, or on YouTube. So great being with you as always, Brother Grant. And thank you to our listeners who did the knowledge with us tonight. And we will see everybody back next Wednesday.
All right.
All
Real
right.
power is people.
Real power is people.